the Office of Civil Rights training for certified local public agencies for this year, 2024. We'll have another training on the 17th at Marion County Public Works in person. This is the live virtual session here on April 9th. My name's Tiffany Hamilton. I'm the certification program manager, and the certification program office has partnered with the ODOT Office of Equity and Civil Rights to develop and bring you this training on civil rights programs that apply to certified local agency projects. I want to thank our partners with the Office of Equity and Civil Rights for working with the certification program to coordinate and bring this training to you. So at this time, I would like to get a sense of, and you all to get a sense of who is in our audience today. So if you could use the raise hand feature when I call out your group, please do so. And that should be at the ribbon at the top of the screen for you. Sean, do you have a question? No. Okay. So will you please raise your hand if you are a staff member with a certified local agency? That's great. We've got quite a few people here with certified local agencies. That's great because that's our target audience, is certified local agency staff who are working on federal aid projects. Perfect. Would you, folks that are with certified agencies, go ahead and put your hands down. And we're going to go to the next group. If you are with a consultant firm that supports either ODOT or certified agency projects, will you put your hands up? I'm expecting fewer consultants. Looks like we have a couple. Great, welcome, welcome. If you're just arriving, please put your microphone on mute. Next, I'd like to inquire, how many people from ODOT are on the line? Please raise your hand if you're with ODOT. Yeah, I guess I can raise my hand. Okay, good deal, good deal. And then finally, last but not least, do we have anybody from Federal Highway who joined the call today? I'm not sure. I think we might have a couple of people who got stuck with their hands up on a prior raise. In order to put your hand down, you need to click the raise hand button again, and it will help you put your hand down. Okay, well, welcome to our certified agency consultant, ODOT and Federal Highway staff, if you have joined the call. The ODOT local agency certification program staff that were involved in coordinating today's training include myself, Tiffany Hamilton, Hannah Eastwood, she's our compliance coordinator, and Melissa Flores, who is our certification coordinator. They're going to be helping today. Hannah's going to be putting a few test your knowledge poll questions up for us, and Melissa's going to be helping with doing a little bit of the moderation of the questions that go into chat. So just be aware that our team is helping with the overall training. And then in addition to us, the featured presenters today are with the Office of Equity and Civil Rights. And the presenters and experts that are on the line today include two of our civil rights field coordinators, Tricia Vrana and Alyssa Suits. This training, hi Tricia. Trisha's going to be doing the presentation portion for the field coordinator today. Alyssa's going to be presenting at the in-person training in Marion County. And then we've got DBE Program Manager, Dipankar Mukherjee. Thanks, Dipankar. We've got Civil Rights Programs Administrative Specialist, Amanda Toney. She's on the line. Hey, Amanda. And then we also have Field and Business Support Manager, Cy Fink, also joining us today in support of today's training. So as we go through today's materials, please hold your questions to a break if you want to verbally ask your questions. If there's something that you'd like to put in the chat, go ahead and put it in the chat. And then at strategic points throughout today, we're going to be opening the mic or announcing the questions to our subject matter experts. So that's the plan for Q&A today. And first, next up, what we're going to do is have Hannah launch a poll for a knowledge check. Hannah?
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to launch this question in polls momentarily. I know not everyone will be able to access the poll in Teams. It depends on your settings. So if you feel comfortable putting an answer in the chat, if you're not able to answer the poll, feel free to go ahead and do so. We'll go through the question and the answer, so you'll see, and I'll cover kind of what the results were too. I did want to note too that obviously we're asking this at the beginning before we've done any instructions. So if you don't know the answer to this question, that's fine. These are just kind of like little questions sprinkled through for you to kind of get a gauge your knowledge, and we'll cover those answers as we're going through. So if you don't know it right now, that's fine. Hopefully by the end of the training, you'll know the answers to all these questions. I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. So the question is, where can I find information about civil rights policies and procedures that are applicable to federal aid projects? And the possible answers are in my agency's quality program plan for federal aid projects, in the local agency guidelines manual, section C, chapter 8, on the ODOT Office of Equity and Civil Rights website, or all of the above. Give everyone a minute. Yeah, some of you probably won't be able to see the poll. It just kind of depends. So like I said, if you feel comfortable answering in the chat, feel free. And it looks like in the poll results, everyone has correctly answered D. And it looks like everyone in the chat has answered the same thing too. So Tiffany, you want to go to the next slide? See the answer. So the answer, as all of you have correctly guessed or seen in the chat, is D. So each of your agencies should have their own quality program plan, which we also refer to a QPP, although your agency may call it something different, like a quality control plan, and that should have information about civil rights compliance. The LAG manual section C, chapter 8, is the primary chapter that focuses on civil rights, and it references other relevant guidance in there as well. And then lastly, there are forms and other information available on the ODOT Office of Civil Rights, Equity and Civil Rights website.
So before we get started with the substantive civil rights training, I'm going to briefly touch on the local agency certification program perspective of this civil rights training, including why ODOT civil rights programs are required. I'm also going to put the training in context of the certification program's risk-based structure, and remind our certified local agencies about some of the program resources related to civil rights programs that are available to you as resources when you need to check your reference or remind yourself about requirements. So first of all, why ODOT civil rights programs? We know here at ODOT that some local agencies have their own offices of equity and inclusion, or have otherwise have civil rights programs of their own. And we know that some agencies would prefer to use their own civil rights programs on their projects, or include them at those terms and conditions in their contracts. However, because this is a federal aid project, FHWA, conditions that we just follow the federally approved civil rights programs on our project. So as a condition, only the federal programs that ODOT civil rights programs that have been FHWA approved can apply to our FHWA funded projects. Ultimately, FHWA retains authority for the program approval. So like, while ODOT has a DBE program or an on-the-job training program, those programs are reviewed and approved by Federal Highway. And then as a condition of receiving funding for federal funding, our certified local agencies have to agree to adopt and follow ODOT's programs with respect to their federal aid projects. We have terms and conditions in our local agency certification program agreements. Previously, we referred to them as our master certification agreement. And then in terms of oversight, ODOT has oversight responsibility to Federal Highway with respect to ensuring local agency adherence and compliance of these different civil rights programs. We're responsible to ensure subrecipients, contractors, and subcontractors comply with program requirements, and that includes our certified agencies. And then in terms of the overall approach, we do have a multi-level approach to ensuring compliance. So one of the things that we look at here is having program foundational documents. Hannah mentioned our quality program plans that we require of our certified agency. We also have contract templates and Title VI, ADA, and ADA Title II plans that each of our certified agencies have to prepare and gets reviewed by the Office of Equity and Civil Rights. And then, of course, we have that project level support where we've got LALs and field coordinators helping to ensure compliance at the project level. So we've got this multi-level approach with FHWA at the top, ODOT in the middle, and then certified local agencies kind of at that project delivery level that has to help with ensuring compliance with these civil rights programs as a condition of the federal aid funding. You might ask yourself, hey, this information looks familiar to me. Why is ODOT certification program and Office of Equity and Civil Rights presenting the same information to you again? Well, to put it bluntly, it continues to be an issue. We need to we see compliance issues, we see turnover in staff, we see just a continuous need. Civil rights are considered a high-risk area for federal compliance, and so we have to train and retrain and refresh on the requirements each year. And this is the first time we've gotten back together in a live training in a couple of years. COVID kind of disrupted things, but we're here and we want to make sure that we're giving our certified local agency staff the tools they need to succeed in complying with the federal aid civil rights programs requirements. I mentioned that I would put this a little bit in context of our certification program structure. If you've been with the program for any amount of time or you've been to presentations about the certification program, there's a good chance you've seen this pyramid in the past. We have a risk-based oversight approach. And we start with the program oversight, working with new agencies and existing certified agencies on ensuring that they develop and maintain foundational documents. That would include, as I noted before, the quality program plan, Title VI program plan, ADA Title II transition plan, and then any of the construction and consultant contracting templates. We also regularly review the agency's staffing to ensure that they've got adequate staff that are qualified to deliver federal aid projects. And then we also require that our certified agencies commit to sending staff to training and taking training necessary to deliver federal aid projects and to maintain any professional or technical licenses or certifications necessary for federal aid projects. And then at the base level, once we've got all of those in place, we enter into a certification program agreement that spells out the terms and conditions of the relationship between ODOT and our certified local agencies. Today, we're here to help fulfill a part of the training element of the foundation of our program level oversight. You'll see in the middle of the pyramid, we've got the regions provide a partnering and supporting role at that project level, where the certified agency is responsible for delivering the project. And at this level, ODOT is to have risk-based oversight around key milestone areas and key programs such as environmental right-of-way and our civil rights programs. And if you're not familiar with it already, we do have a certified local agency approval authority matrix that kind of outlines the roles, responsibilities, and authority for decision-making on certified agency projects. And then you'll see at the top of the pyramid that we have our compliance program, and that's where we have annual self-audits. Our program, Hannah Eastwood, as our compliance coordinator, conducts risk assessments on a step cycle basis, and we'll fine tune them on an annual basis as we receive self-audits from our certified agencies. And then we do program and project level reviews. And when needed, we'll work with our certified agencies on strategic corrective actions. This is a slide that provides a summary of relevant certification program resources related to civil rights trainings. Some of them belong to the certification program, and some of them may actually belong to your agency. So just as you might note, we're kind of identifying and reinforcing the use of the foundational documents that our certified agencies have. In the LAG manual, section B, we have our Title VI and ADA Title II transition program requirements. That's spelled out. Section B of the LAG is the area on becoming certified and maintaining certification. And then, as Hannah noted previously, Section C, Chapter 8 is the primary civil rights chapter where the DBE, EEO, OJT, and apprenticeship programs are spelled out, and they point our certified agencies to a number of other resources. Additionally, we've got our Chapter 12, which discusses consultant selection, and our LPA A&E requirements guide, and then Section D provides resource links to various checklists and forms. And then in our for the local agency foundational documents, you should have your Title VI and ADA Title II transition plans. Your agency should be following and complying with your own plans with respect to those programs. And then within the quality program plans each agency has developed, you should have checklists that help you with the project delivery controls around ensuring civil rights programs requirements are being met. And then, of course, we've got our compliance plan, the self audits, and one resource that maybe people may have forgotten about is we have core questions and civil rights compliance review guides that are posted to our forms and guidance page. And so if you're curious about what FHWA sees as important, you can go out and take a look at those compliance review guides. These are our certification program contacts. So if you need any assistance from the certification program, this is where you find us. And then I just want to reinforce responsibilities that our certified local agencies have with respect to civil rights. Just a reminder that it's really important that our certified agencies comply with the civil rights programs and enforce the program requirements with your contractors in accordance with the ODOT developed and approved civil rights provisions that are included in your federal aid contracts. You're responsible for requesting goals and including the applicable goal and civil rights provisions in your bid book or your contract document, and for submitting any required forms and provisions to Office of Equity and Civil Rights for review and processing. You are to copy your ODOT project contact or ODOT local agency liaison on submissions to Office of Civil Rights so that they're aware that you are making these submissions. And you should be tracking your compliance with the various civil rights requirements, either using one of the checklists that are available within the LAG manual or that is embedded within your own quality program plan and that has been reviewed and approved by ODOT. And at this time, we're going to be transitioning into the presentations by the ODOT Office of Equity and Civil Rights. You'll see on this slide that they have 6 different programs, but there are a couple of the programs that are specific that don't apply to our certified agencies. So first off, we're going to hear from Dipankar on the DBE program. We're also going to hear some information on the workforce development, on the job training, equal employment opportunity. Title VI, environmental justice, ADA, and limited English proficiency are programs that are managed by ODOT's Office of Civil Rights, but we're not going to be covering that in today's training. Rather, Brenda Gessner has set up a series of Title VI, environmental justice and ADA training that are being offered separately this year. So any questions before we move into the DBE program presentation about certified agency responsibilities on federal aid projects for civil rights? Okay. Well, if you think of something, you can go ahead and drop it in the chat and we'll do our best to respond to you when needed. This time I'm going to turn it over to Dipankar. And Dipankar, if you want to just cue me when you're ready to advance slides, I can continue to advance the slides for you.
That is fantastic. Tiffany, thank you. And good morning, everybody. I'm Dipankar Mukherjee, the DBE Program Manager of OECR. And today I have my colleagues, co-hosts, Amanda and Tricia. And we are going to cover first part, that is the pre-construction sections. And we are going to talk about the DB forms and our forms requirements and policy procedures. So next slide, please. Thank you. And DB or Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. It applies to all US DOT funded projects. To ensure non-discrimination in the award and administration of ordered contracts and create a level playing field where DBEs can compete fairly. We assign DBE goal on all federally funded projects. Next slide, please. Excuse me. There's some glitches. Okay. Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity, the COVID. This certifies DBEs in Oregon, and COVID administers and manages the DBE database and handles certification questions. Their contact information will be added to the chat. And ODOT's Office of Equity and Civil Rights monitors DBE compliance. So we do not certify, COVID does, but we work very closely with COVID. Next slide, please. DBE program is designed to give all businesses an equal chance to succeed regardless of their background. It specifically helps certified DBEs to compete on the same terms as others. It also works to remove obstacles that make it hard for these businesses to get contracts, making the market more open and competitive. Plus, it helps these businesses grow and become strong enough to succeed on their own beyond the program. And that's why DBEs will graduate once they reach the threshold. Next slide, please. All federally funded contracts will be assessed, as I mentioned before, for a DBE goal. If there is $1 US DOT fund, mostly FHWA fund, that's what we deal with, then that program will be, that project will be assessed for DBE goal. There are two types of DBE goal, race conscious and race neutral. Race conscious refers to specific goal assigned to a project, focusing on assisting DBE businesses owned by minorities or women, which is actually contract goal. That is also called contract goal that we assign. And race neutral goals, on the other hand, involve measures that enhance opportunities for all small businesses, not just DBE. Both approaches are integral to the DBE program, ensuring non-discrimination in DOT-assisted contracts and promoting equal opportunity for all businesses. Next slide, please. This is our annual overall goal that every 3 years, we 3-year cycle, we create our annual goal and we assign it. So right now our goal is 23.43, and it is applicable FY23 through 25. And race neutral goal of that 23.43% is 17.33. I'm sorry, race conscious is 17.33, race neutral is 6.10. Ordered individual contract goals are different. They are set prior to the project advertisement for construction project. We'll cover this in details later. And also, these contract goals are set by the PM for RFP for A&E projects. Prime must commit sufficient work to DBE subcontractors to meet the individual contract goal. Next slide, please. We will now talk about the DBE goal setting process of A&E and non-A&E contracts and the required forms that need to be submitted. The next one. Main takeaway here is that many DBE requirements apply even if when a DBE no goal applies. Each requirement will be covered in details in following slides. DBE goal setting process for A&E projects follows LPA, A&E requirements, A&E requirement guide section 3.4. For non-A&E projects, no goal is the standard assignment. For further information, please see LPA non-A&E requirements guide section 3.4.1. DBE provisions are added even if there is no goal. For goal greater than 0, committed DBE breakdown form is required. For all consultant contract, notice of award and executed contracts are required submittals. PSR are required if there are any subcontractors. Next slide, please. Any consultant goals, PM sets the goal and set the DBE goal before release of RFP. And DBE goal questions for A&E contracts go to OECR PSK inbox. Please include audit liaison on all civil rights communications. Thank you. Next slide, please. A&E goal standards we currently follow the tiered goal standard. So when there is a zero goal, that means there is no goal. If it is under $100,000, includes any anticipated amendments. If it is single discipline contract, disciplines means mostly the work areas, and any emergency repair contracts. For emergency repair contracts, please turn in your emergency declaration or describe your emergency in your request. These are for our no-go clauses. But if there are 2 to 4 disciplines, and if it is more than 100,000, then we will have 3% goal. An 8% goal if it has 5 or more disciplines. And one thing is that there is a DB goal calculation worksheet. It is not required to be submitted, but this can be used as a convenience. And if there is any goal exception request or reduction, please contact OECR via OCR PSK mailbox. Next slide, please. We are currently working on updating our A&E goal setting process. This is in draft form right now. We are trying to keep the tiered goal. We don't want to change everything, but we want to keep the structure, but we are proposing higher goals than our current level to address higher annual goal of 23.43%. CPO will issue a bulletin to notify CLPS once finalized. Next slide, please. For solicitation, please include the DB. It includes the DB goal and no goal in the solicitation, if applicable, and in the sample contract. It include applicable goal or no goal DB provisions. If there is a goal, review and submit the completed committed DB breakdown form and send it to OECR PSK mailbox. Once the project has been awarded, please email the notice of award form to the OCR PSK mailbox within 3 days of contract award. Email a copy of all executed A&E contracts. This includes goal and no goal contracts to OCR PSK inbox. Requirements apply to both A&E and non-A&E contracts, but requirements differ slightly based on whether the DB goal is zero, is greater than zero. Next slide, please. Committed DB breakdown for consultant contracts. It used the form 7345235, and please submit prior to contract execution to OECR. If the goal is greater than zero, please complete form for each DB subcontractor of any tiers whose work is committed towards meeting the assigned contract goal. Copy ODOT liaison. This form is also required for any proposed substitution of DB subcontractors. Submit the most updated version of the breakdown of cost, BOC, which with the committed DB breakdown form. Items that we check for is the firm still certified in COVID? Is the firm certified to do the task? Does the amount exceed the BOC? If it is an amendment, and the total for the project thus far. Next slide, please. Now there is a knowledge check. I think
Hannah's going to launch the
Hannah
poll
is gonna
here.
do the, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so our next question, I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Change the settings, so hopefully it works better this time. So the question is, true or false? There is no difference between the ODOT annual DBE goal and a contract DBE goal. Well, it looks like we have everyone getting this right again. So the curve is pretty steep at this point, Brenda. Tiffany, do you want to go to the next slide? So as you all correctly answered, the answer is false. As Dipankar mentioned, there we have an annual statewide overall goal for DB participation, which is currently 23.43%. But your contract goal will be a different goal, and all of those contract goals go into adding up to the full statewide goal.
Fantastic, thank you, Hannah. And thank you, Tiffany. And right now, I would like to invite Tricia from OECR to briefly talk about PSR, page summary reports, and CAF. She's going to cover this in details later.
Hi, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your participation today. And thank you to Dipankar. We are going to actually do a deeper dive into both the PSR, the paid summary report, as well as the commercially useful function during my presentation of the portion, which is in the construction phase. So just a high-level overview points. First of all of our forms can be found on our Civil Rights Reports page on the ODOT website. The completed form should be done for each payment period from subs, from previous agency payments, reports on all projects with subcontractors regardless of goals, and must include all subs, DBE or not. And I understand that during the life cycle of a project, subs can be added or removed throughout the life cycle. So as you do get new subs onto the project, be sure to have them listed even though a payment is not made to them. The forms can be submitted to the PSK inbox. You'll see the email address there. And then the forms again can be found on our website. Could I get the next slide, please? All right. So the commercially useful function, this is how your agency gets credit for DBE work performed on the project. It should be done at the peak performance of the DBE, not necessarily the peak performance of the project. So make sure that whoever is doing or performing the cuff understands when the DBE will be performing the most work at their time on the project. The cuff has to be done every 12 months that the DBE is on the project. And there are certain criteria that actually ensures that the DBE is performing a cuff. So the management, the equipment, the workforce, materials, and performance all have to be under the purview of the DBE, managing all these entities and not any assistance from another entity or the prime. And as we talked about it earlier, this will go into a deeper dive during my presentation of the construction phase. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tricia. The next slide, please.
So at this point, we're going to be going into a break, Dipankar, but before we move off the commercially useful function as it relates to consultant contracts, I do want to point out that we currently do not have a commercially useful function review form for our A&E and non-A&E consultant contracts. However, we did want to include information in this portion of our presentation about what a commercially useful function is. Dipankar, as I understand it, at some point, the DBE program at ODOT will be rolling out some type of cuff requirement on our consultant contracts. At this point, this was included in our presentation to provide those of you who are working on consultant contracts an understanding of what the cuff is and request that you monitor for any red flags. So if you were to see, say, a DBE listed as committed to performing work on the contract, but some of these indicators here suggested that the DBE is not actually managing their work or using their own equipment or workforce materials or performing their part of the contract that they've been committed to perform, that you should see that as a red flag and escalate that information and look into it and consult with the DBE program manager about that. Dipankar, did you want to add anything to that piece before we go to break?
Thank you, Tiffany. You are correct that we will in future, maybe near future, we are going to create a format how we can capture the cuff for A&E projects, because those are a little bit different. It's like most of the jobs, they do desktop and design and inspection type of things rather than construction materials and equipment needed for construction project. So yes, we will be updating, and just to let you know that this morning, US DOT released their final ruling, which actually came out just 30 minutes ago. And I did not see it. I just got that email. So that we have been waiting for more than a year. So there are many proposed update coming. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thanks, Dipankar. So we're gonna
do we want to ask people questions? Do they have any questions before we go to break?
Oh, yes.
Real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions about what has been presented so far, now would be a good time to raise your hand and ask or drop it in the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I just missed something.
mostly about whether they can access the polling feature. Oh, hang on. Gary has something. Did find out on one project where a DBE worked for less than 8 hours in December of the year before the contract really got going and had to create a separate cuff. That was a surprise and good to know for the future. Yeah. Thank you.
Looks like we do have one question from Sean. The cups are 1 cup per 12 months or 1 cup per calendar year?
It's for 12 months.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of a
from
rolling
December
year.
to December.
So Kate Dreyfus with Gresham asks, why do cuffs apply to non-committed DBE primes? And, I wonder if we want to hold this discussion until we get into the more detailed discussion when we get to the construction phase presentation.
But I can just briefly touch this question. Is that the main intention for the cuff is to find that DBs are the one who are getting credits for DB credits. So they are the one working on this project, on any project. So if it is non-committed DB sub, we also need to do the cuff and non-committed DB primes. Yes. So there are some incidents happen when they subcontracted somebody to do the work, but they are the DB to get the credit. So we can talk about this later.
So at this point, we're going to go ahead and move to break. We're going to take a 10-minute break. And I want to point out for those of you who are just involved in consultant contracting, such as our MPO participants, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the training, but it is definitely going to be focused more on the construction contracting end of things. So if you wanted to drop off, now would be a good time to drop off. But as I said, you're welcome to stay with us for the construction portion of the training. So we'll be back in at, what would it be, 10:07. Okay, everyone, we're at 10:07, so we'll be ending our break here. Welcome back. And I'll go ahead and advance to the next slide.
Thank you, Tiffany. So we are going to talk about construction contract. And before we move on, were there any questions thus far? Okay, next slide, please. Pre-construction timeline. As you see here, there are all the forms and form numbers are written. These are all required forms, required submittals. So please turn in for goal request form when you request for setting the goal for a project when it is 90% PSNE. Goal request form, which is also ELO form. It is called ELO form, and construction schedule and cost estimate. And for bid book review, please make sure that it is the final draft before sending it to OCR info request inbox. And for bid notification, we need the bid notice, the commitment utilization form, which is also known as Form 1. And after that, our office will email you back a goal results report. Make sure that the SSUR form, which is subcontractor solicitation and utilization report, is submitted shortly after the bid. Send the award notice within 3 to 10 business days. If it is possible, please include the agency contract information, the number. The notice of award for the contractor and the committed DP breakdown certification form, also known as Form 2, within 10 business days after the award. The pre-con letter should be sent to you prior to the pre-con meeting as the last step. So there are timelines and forms and the steps that needs to be followed. Next slide, please. As I mentioned that there are three information needed for requesting for goal setting. Is a goal request form, sometimes called as a ELO form, and also construction schedule, engineer's cost estimate, certified LPA cost estimate form number 7345096. For an emergency project, the emergency declaration is also needed. Goal request submission required if any of the following occurs. Like if the goal is stale, now it is 6 months. We change that from 3 months to 6 months. So it gives you more flexibility that we don't have to refresh the goal. And also there are other criteria that if if there is a significant changes in the estimate, that's plus minus 10%, or the funding source changes like state to federal or federal to state, and last, significant scope changes. If any of these happen, then you can request for the goal refresh and submit all 3 documents to OCR goal request inbox. The next slide, please. This is the form. Please fill as appropriate and mark the certified agency box, date submitted, date needed, date of estimate, all the good stuff. And also, please add the local agency liaison information, estimated bid date and date of completion, and make sure that emergency projects, for emergency projects, please add a note in type of work, add emergency declaration in email along with other documents. So please make sure you provide all the information as appropriate. Thank you. The next slide, please. Construction bid book review. Please submit bid book to order liaison or project manager upon completion of bid book, who submits to OECR for review. See Section C, Chapter 8 for the Civil Rights Bid Book checklist. A new approval of the bid book is required when changes to the bid book are made. Please turn in updated bid schedule, as this may cause delays in processing Form 1 and Form 2. OECR will send a response to certified LPA and liaison containing the bid book checklist, as well as any requests or bid book approval. Bid book approval must be obtained before ODOT can issue NTP to advertise for bid. Next slide, please. Construction for construction bid notification and goal results report. Documents needed for all projects. That is a civil rights bid notification for certified agency projects. That's the number 7342848. And for projects with DB goal is where there is a goal, DB goal other than 0, is that DB commitment certification and utilization form 7432785, which is also called Form 1, and which is required for all bidders. Goal results report for projects with a DB goal that is greater than 0. OECR will issue a DB goal results report generally within 5 business days of receipt of the bid notification and DB commitment certification and utilization forms. OECR may request supplemental information from the LPA as needed. The LPA shall not issue the notice of award until the allotted time to request administrative reconsideration has passed and there are no outstanding appeals. Administrative reconsideration is associated with submittal of good faith efforts. Please submit documents to OECR info request inbox. Next slide, please. Construction bid notification form. If the DB goal is greater than 0, then submit bid notification, include each bidder's DB commitment certification and utilization form 7342785. Include any GFE submitted by bidders and complete all areas. Project name and key number, date advertised, bid close date, estimated date of completion, bidder and bid amount, certified agency PM, contact information for PM. Submit documents to OECR info request. These are all for forms and procedures that we talked about. And now I'm going to invite Amanda to give you detail about other forms and procedure. Next slide, please.
Hello, my name is Amanda. I'm the admin office specialist at OECR, and I'll be handling most of your forms that you turn in. Next slide, please.
So it looks like we have a question in the chat box, or Danielle Malone has a question there.
Yeah, we can stop. We can pause for questions. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I had a question. Isn't the bid notification required regardless of a goal or not?
Yes.
Because the slide indicated that you only needed to do that. Yep. That last slide indicated that you only need to submit the notification if the goal was greater than 0.
Yeah, it's required for all. Thank you. We'll correct the slide.
Okay.
Great. Okay. So
do I have the right slide up, Amanda, or do I need to advance one more?
Next slide, please. Okay. So this is the goals results report that so this is a goals results report that we email out. Since this is public, this is an example of one that made it and one that was non-responsive. OECR will review and evaluate each bidder's responsiveness to the assigned DBE goal. This report, so this is the report we email back out to the local agency. If the apparent bid is lower than determined and determined to be non-responsive, that's the second bidder on that row. OECR will provide the LPA with specified language that offers the bidder administrative reconsideration for that process. The LPA shall include the specified language in this notice to the apparent low bidder on the LPA letterhead, and the LPA shall not change the specified language provided by OECR. And the email address, which I'm going to post to the chat, is OECR info request at odot.oregon.gov. So make sure that this email is added so our info request emails will not wind up in your spam folder. And extra note on DBE administrative reconsiderations. OECR is the sole responsible party for the DBE administrative reconsideration process. The LPA cannot issue the notice of award until the allotted time to request administrative reconsideration has passed. And there is no outstanding appeals for the reconsideration typically lasts about 5 calendar days. Next slide. Construction contract awards. This is required within 3 to 10 business days. The civil rights award notification for the certification agency projects. It's form number 7342849. This is for all the projects. And the committed DBE breakdown and certification is also due for projects with a DBE goal that is greater than 0%. And again, that needs to be in within 10 business days. The info request inbox that this needs to be sent to has been posted to the chat. And next slide, please. Okay, so this is the DB breakdown and certification form for construction. This is the form that's due within 10 days. So the number one issues that we have with these and things that we also check for is that make sure that in the quantity section that the numbers, the quantities do not exceed the bid book, and also that the bid item numbers match up with the bid schedule. And for all committed DBEs, make sure that each page is signed. So if you have multiple pages for the DBE, make sure that the DBE signs each page before sending it in. And next slide, please. Hey, with that, any questions or? Yeah, I do believe I see a hand up.
It looks like Brian Banta with City of Salem has a question. Brian, did you want to unmute?
Yeah. So my question is, so on the goals report for the commitments, the contractor commits a certain percentage of the contract. Say, for instance, for the life of the contract, they don't meet their commitment, but it's still more than the goal. Is that going to be an issue, contract-wise?
Yes, let me answer this. So you are talking about, just to make sure that I understand this correctly. So there is a committed amount, and there's a goal, and also there some non-committed amount. So the committed amount must be met. If there is at the end of this contract, for some reason, the commitment not met, then there should be justification and good faith efforts.
Okay, and even if it is still more than,
yes,
than the,
even it
than
is
the goal.
more than.
Okay.
Because the commitment is written in stone, that must be met. But there could be reason that it is not met, but we need to know that those through good faith efforts.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you, Amanda.
All right, thanks. Any
and
more
thank
questions?
you, Tiffany.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move forward to the knowledge check slide, and Hannah will launch it.
So here's our next question. I'm going to launch the poll for those of you who are able to see it. If you're not, again, you can go ahead and put your answer in the chat if you feel comfortable. And the question is, can a prime contractor terminate a DBE subcontractor without the consent of the contracting agency? Yes or no? Well, it looks like everyone pretty much is answering no, except for a couple people who are a little different, which is fair. So we go to the next slide. The answer, as everyone is quickly identifying, is no. A prime contractor cannot terminate a DBE subcontractor without the consent of the contracting agency.
So at this point, we're going to move into the construction phase of the presentation. Dipankar, did you have any more before you hand it off?
No, before I hand it off to Tricia, I think there is a, when transition happened from me to Amanda, I think one slide was missing. So I just don't want to, it's slide number 37. So that's important information, so we can cover that. This is the one. So
Okay.
yeah, so Amanda, do you want to talk about this or?
Yes,
can, yeah.
briefly,
Yes.
for the sake of time. So this is good. This is turned in at bid by the and filled out by the contractor. The form needs to be submitted within 2 working days of the bid opening. The project name, bid opening date, printed and signed, the representative, the date, name of the contractor, name of the firm, the type of work needs to be the type of work that they're certified to do. This is information is available on the COBID website, and the subcontract amount. And for subcontracts, if you're a prime contractor, leave the gray areas blank for the agency to fill out, and fill out the rest of the forms. Because what I see very frequently is contractors auto deducting the 60% participation, goal participation from suppliers. And the good faith efforts documentation if the goal is not met, and please submit this to info request inbox, which has the inbox info has been posted to the chat. And thank you. With that, I am passing the torch.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Tiffany. Yes, this is an important form, so I'm happy that we caught it and covered. And now Tricia.
Before we move on, I do want to add one piece of clarification. Amanda said that this needs to come in within 2 days of the bid opening. That means it needs to be submitted to OECR within 2 days of the bid opening. This form actually has to come in with the bid, or the bid would be considered non-responsive. I just want to make sure that that is clear, that this isn't something that you would be able to take from a bidder 2 days later before we move on.
And it looks like we have a question from Kate in the chat. asking if this is an okay time to ask for clarification on the need for a CUF for a non-committed DBE prime.
I could answer that now, or I could answer it during the portion that I cover the cuff, but either way. With regards to your question, Kate, according to your LAG manual, on page C105, Chapter 8 of Civil Rights, the cuff has to be performed for a non-committed as well as a committed. And the reason being for that is according to FHWA regulations, excuse me, in order for your local agency to get credit for DBE work, the cuff has to be performed so that it is understood that the entity is meeting all the requirements of a DBE. So if you don't want credit for the DBE work to go towards the overall DBE achievement for your project, then you don't have to perform a cuff, but you should if you would like the credit. So that's the only way FHWA can verify. The DBE credit is a requirement, or a DBE goal is a requirement as part of the projects that are infused with FHWA money. So if you do have a DBE goal and you have DBE entities working on your project, you should get credit for it by performing the cuffs.
And that's where the race neutral and race conscious that we covered at the beginning, that plays here.
Yes.
Right? Any committed, those goes to race conscious.
Mhm.
Any non-committed goes to race neutral. Both are the DBE credit we have to report to FHWA.
Right. And the DBE breakdown of work plan is just part of the contract. It is not what triggers the cuff to be performed for the DBE, just to clarify that. Any other questions pertaining to this?
Thank you, Tricia. And thank you,
You're
Tiffany.
very welcome. Thank you to my colleagues for presenting the pre-construction phase. So once a field coordinator, myself and Alyssa are the two that handle for Region 1 and Region 2, we have a notice to proceed from procurement. That's when we enter in the construction phase for the project. Next slide, please. So I've heard the internal pre-con being mentioned as a pre-pre-con. It is actually termed an internal pre-con. This is where we meet with the project manager or the resident engineer. We use that synonymously in ODOT, the consultant or the PM if they're involved, the contract administrator if they have one, an inspector, as well as the field coordinator and the LAL or TPM. This is where we discuss in detail the compliance documents that are needed for the life cycle of the project, as well as the timeliness and when it should be submitted, and the roles and responsibilities of who should submit them, and maintain the email chain from the local agency to the local agency liaison to OECR. Next slide, please. So what's required for all DBE subcontractors prior to the DBE starting work? The 3A work plan will tell us how the DBE will perform the work. So it does include the details of what they're doing, meaning their bid items and what they'll do on their scope of work for the project. And this can change through the life cycle of their work on the project. They could have a change order that may change the scope of their work, or they may not be able to perform all the work because maybe the work doesn't need to be performed. So in that case, the 3A work plan just kind of gives everyone a heads up of what the intention is as far as the scope of work for that DBE entity. It's an opportunity to identify and head off any potential cuff and credit issues. It's compared to the subcontract and DBE breakdown form if the DBE is committed. It can identify potential issues and correct problems before they happen and provide feedback to the prime and the DBE. And it is a baseline for the cuff review. So if you are an inspector or a person who does do the cuffs, I think it's a good idea to ensure that you look over the work proposal before you go out on the job site. why is it not required of a non-DBE committed? It's just not, it's not a regulation set by FHWA for that. It's only for the committed. This is an example of what the Form 3A looks like. I can go over some sections that we see a lot of. Kate, I can address your questions during the question and answer. I'm just going to finish the slides. When looking at your 3A work form plan, the items that we see a lot of either discrepancies or missing information is section A, the work. So you want to make sure that all your bid items are listed, and you should fill the form out as complete as possible. Otherwise, what happens is Alyssa and I will get these forms and then we'll kick it back for more information, and that just creates more of a back and forth. If you need help filling out the form, we are always available to help you. The other portion that we see a lot of missing information is B2, required personnel, the supervisor, as well as the employees that will be on site. Section C, which is the type of equipment they'll use. This is where you would put if they're using rental equipment or if they own their own equipment. That's important to know because we want to ensure that the equipment is under full control of the DBE and not being shared with the prime. In section D for supplies and materials, if they are using concrete or asphalt, we have to know who the suppliers are because they have to be ODOT approved. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? And this is page 2. If there is anything else as far as resources that the DBE will use, this is the opportunity for them to list it here in section E, as well as any additional information that could be foreseen throughout the life cycle of the project. You have to ensure that the PM or whoever is authorizing the document signs it completely, dates it, and any comments that they may have that the field coordinator needs to be aware of. So essentially, if any of this information is not consistent with the subcontract, then it should be remedied so that it is reflective. Any questions so far other than what Kate asked as far as how to fill out the form? All right, next slide, please. All right, so the DBE commercially useful function, it's usually an inspector, and I know every local agency has a different office structure, so not everybody has their own inspector, but most times it is an inspector. The DBE goals are intended to provide contracting opportunities only to eligible DBE program participants. And when we say eligible, like they have to be registered in COVID, there's like a whole process for an entity to become a disadvantaged business and to participate in this. It does level the playing field so that these entities can participate on large projects, and they're entitled to be in the program for 12 years until they graduate, with the hopes that they become a self-sustaining entity that can be a prime on their own. The FHWA requires ODOT to monitor the DBE program compliance. There's a form that's submitted by the CLPA to myself and to Alyssa, and we review the findings and coordinate with the CLPA on any required corrective action. And I will tell you that it is a constant battle for us to receive CUFs, and it's all across the board. It's not just for local agencies, but it is recommended that the CUF be performed at peak performance of the DBE, not necessarily peak performance of the project. So just keep that in mind, please. If you're trying to perform a CUF and the DBE is only doing 1 to 10%, that's not the time to do the CUF. Let's go to the next slide, please. So let's talk about the 5 factors that are required for a DBE to operate as a DBE. They have to manage their own project. They have to have either rental agreements or own their own equipment and not share with the prime. They have to manage their own workforce as well as get the materials they need for their scope of work. And they also have to manage the performance of the work. If these 5 factors are not complicit, then they are not performing as a DBE as stated by the regulations of FHWA. Next slide, please. So the PM or designated representative must perform at least 1 cuff review per DBE. It is done within a rolling 12-month period. So if you work from December to December of 1 year and you only work a few days in January, unfortunately, you do have to do another cuff. When a significant change in the operation occurs, then you have to do another cuff. If there is a change order, you have to do another cuff. And after termination or substitution of a DBE for the new DBE. Any questions about any of these points? All right, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the form. I'll go over sections that we often see either missing information or needed information that is not given to us. Ensure that when you fill out the business name, it is their legal name. Bid items are very, very important. They should be listed according to what's observed at the time of the cuff. And it should be consistent with the bid items that are on their subcontract as well. The DBE start date is as well important, as well as the completion date. There are questions such as section B, where it asks you a question and then it says, if no, please explain. And then as you go further down the form, it asks you about who's in charge, right? The superintendent or the foreman. It wants you to list who the name is and who they report to, right? And then it wants you to list the names of the tradesmen that are working on site, and you should have their names and classification and ensure that they are only on the payroll for the DBE and not the prime, because sharing people is still not allowed. You want to ensure that you verified that these people were not on anyone's payroll other than the DBE by checking CPRs of that DBE entity as well as the prime to ensure that there's no cross work being done. Again, in section C, the equipment required, that's something that needs to be on there, whether the equipment they're using is owned or leased. And it should have, if it's leased, there should be a rental agreement included in their subcontract package so that that can be verified as well. On number 16, the question is, are all personnel and equipment under the direct supervision of the DBE owner? And it says yes or no, but why or why not? So you have to explain in your description of observation why you feel that they are completely under the management of the DBE entity and not anyone else. Materials, again, are important to be listed there because it has to be ODOT approved resources. Could you go to the next page, please? All right, and then 18, if any of the work has been performed by the contractor, you have to, in your observation, you have to list yes or no, because if yes, then technically that's partial termination of DBE work if a non-DBE entity is performing the DBE's work. So that has to be noted. It has to be brought to your PM's attention right away, as well as shared with the field coordinator for OECR. In the next section, F, for the cuff reviewer, does the DBE appear to have operational control? It says explain why or why not. These are the questions that are usually left blank and we have to send them back. I would say at least 85% of the time. So just be cognizant of filling out the form completely by reading each question. And of course, ensure that you have who performed the cuff, sorry. So the question is a cuff, sorry, let me see. Is a cuff required for a change order that adds time only, no additional dollars or scope? I'm not sure, but I can get back to you and find out. Dot. I will note that down. Great question. I could probably have it to you before the end of the training. Let's see. And then going down to the project manager, make sure that they sign off on it, as well as check the compliance. I've had some come back with no checks on the compliance or the non-compliance, and that will be kicked back to your office for you to resubmit. Any questions about filling out the cuff in its entirety? All right, so in response to your question, Sean, so the cuff is only done when work is performed. So if it adds time and nothing else, I don't see that another cuff needs to be performed, as long as the cuff that was done in the height of work performance. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, next slide, please.
So Tricia, can I add a clarification on that?
Yes, go ahead.
Let's say you've got a change order and it adds time only and it adds an additional 6 months. And that kicks you into your next 12-month rolling period, and DBEs continue to perform work, then yes, it might trigger an additional cuff review.
As long as it goes outside of the 12-month, yes.
Right. But if they're done with their work and they have finished up and it's time only and it's just like plant establishment and that's all you're doing and no DBEs are involved with that, then you're not going to have an additional cuff review for DBE contractors that are no longer on the project site. That makes sense?
Sean, does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks for the question. Great question. All right. So to review, if a DBE firm is merely an extra participant in a transaction, contract, or project through which funds are being passed to obtain the appearance of a DBE, they do not perform a commercially useful function. And I will let you know that Alyssa and I train the inspectors throughout the state on civil rights portion, and cuff reviews come up quite often during our training. And this is actually not uncommon. So be mindful about when you're observing and ensure that they meet all the criteria and it's not just a facade of a DBE, it's an actual entity that's performing their scope of work according to their subcontract and work plan and breakdown, okay? All right, next slide, please. The eligible DBE owner must control and manage the daily operations of the DBE firm. The DBE must perform, manage, and supervise work involved on the project. The DBE must be responsible for negotiating price, determining quality and quantity, ordering, installing if applicable, and paying for materials and supplies. They must evaluate the amount of work subcontracted, industry practices, and other relevant factors. ODOT may only credit payments towards DBE goals if the DBE performs a cuff. So again, no cuff, no DBE reward for the project. And as I would encourage everyone on their projects, if you have a non-committed DBE and they're only performing like $1,000 worth of work, what if throughout the life cycle of the project, you have 10 of these that perform 500 to 1,000? If you do not perform a cuff and submit a PSR for those, you will not get credit for them. So you want to make sure that even though they're not committed, you still get the DBE credit, because that credit and that they achieve goes to the overall goal of the project. Does that make sense, everyone? All right. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so Hannah?
We just want to do a quick check and see if anyone else has any questions on CUF before we go to the question. I think we're transitioning topics after this, right?
So the question is, do you receive credit to the race neutral goal? Yes, you do, as long as you perform the CUF and submit a PSR for that DBE for the work that they did, non-committed DBE.
Any other CUF questions, or are we good to move on? All right, so here's a question. So I'm going to launch the poll for those of you who can see it. And the question is, what firms require a commercially useful function review, the Form 3B? The options are all firms, whether DB or not, if they're the DBE goal assigned. B is committed DBE firms only, or C is all DBE firms, both committed and non-committed. So the majority of you agree on this one that C is the best answer. We did have a few folks chiming in with option B, which is committed DBE firms only, but yes, the best response here is C. All DBE firms, both committed and non-committed, should have a commercially useful function review performed.
So I would just like to reiterate, both committed and non-committed DBEs need to have a CUF review. Okay, we can move on to the next slide unless there's other questions. So now we're going to cover DBE trucking. I know this is everybody's favorite topic. Next slide, please. All right. So for DBE trucking, you must maintain a DBE trucking log of all trucks used on the project. The ODOT form or approved equal must include all the information, including certification. Complete daily DBE truck log forms every day a DBE truck subcontractor works on the site. The truck logs need to be submitted within 14 days of the first recorded date of the log and is required for all committed DBE trucking subcontractors. Okay, so this is a copy of a trucking log. Some of the questions that can arise during our inspector trainings, this one inspector said that the driver did not want to show him his license, and that is not required, but it is required for the trucking DB entity to provide the truck, the name of the driver. So going into doing the verification, which is the 10% verification that everyone has to do, it's important that the driver's names are listed. And if the driver doesn't match that, then you will need some more information from the trucking company, because technically they didn't give you either consistent information, or this is not a person that is listed as part of a worker for them. So there is a caveat, right? Because if you have a DB trucking company and they lease a truck, they can also lease the driver. But in that case, they sure need to have the driver listed on their rental agreement and somewhere in their subcontract that says who's going to drive the truck, the registration of the truck. The truck has to have some kind of signed noting that it belongs to that trucking entity. So if there is a trucking company that's using their own truck and leasing one, everybody understands the one-to-one credit. So what I mean by that is, as an example, if the truck that is being used by the owner has a contract for $100,000 and then their lease truck does work that's worth $150,000, they only get credit for one-to-one, meaning $100,000 and $100,000. So that extra $50,000 that lease truck did does not get counted towards the credit for that trucking company. Does that make sense? I know that's clear as mud sometimes. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so a CUF review and work plan is still required. Independent verification of all trucks the DBE uses on the project is required as well, and reviews are random. You're required to review at least 10% of all the DBE trucking. And if anyone here needs assistance with how to figure out 10%, you're welcome to contact me. I can give you the breakdown of how that works. But you are entitled to be told when the DBE will be on site. You don't have to announce when you're going to go see it. The whole purpose of verification is that it's random and nobody performs for you. So you get to see them in real time, real work action instead of them acting like they're doing DBE stuff because they know you're there. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the DBE must own and operate at least one truck. The DBE may lease a truck, other DBEs, including owner-operators, for full credit. Non-DBEs, including owner-operators, for credit, but not to exceed the value of the work by the DBE trucks. And that's what I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. Another thing I'd also like to mention, and this was determined by BOLI, a Bureau of Labor and Industry for Oregon, owner-operators mean that there is one operator for the truck. The owner-operator does not have workers. If they do have workers, then they do not fall under the owner-operator category or the regulations towards an owner-operator entity. There's no DBE credit for work by trucks leased from the prime. That would be basically a partial termination of the DBE work. The DBE daily truck log is required, and the contractor receives credit only for the fee or commission it receives as a result of the lease agreements. All right, so let's see. The question was, if they do 120 hours of an expected 100 hours and lease a DB truck for 30 hours, then we count only 100 hours.
So Trisha, this is something that I researched when I was program manager some years ago. You're going to look at value rather than hours. So what is the dollar value associated with it? So you're going to match dollar for dollar, not hour for hour.
Correct. And that's why I mentioned 100,000 and 100,000 instead of 100,000 and 150. So does that answer your question, Gary?
It's a little busy and loud around here, but yes.
All right. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Can I share something though, Trisha?
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
We were the entity that ODOT contacted BOLI separately on to ask about one truck, one driver, or no employees. And we got the email thread from last summer recently and called BOLI and asked them who we could talk to at USDOL. When we called that person, they said that wasn't their position, and we were going to be sharing with that with you. I just thought I'd mention it because it came up in this conversation.
Okay. And I'm not privy to who you spoke to. Who I contacted was Susan Woolley, who's in
Right.
charge of that portion. So be happy to talk to you offline on that.
Sure.
All right. So continuing on with the lease agreement for DBE trucking, the lease must indicate that the DBE has exclusive use of the control over the truck. The lease gives the DBE absolute priority for the use of the leased truck. What that means is if they're leasing a truck, if they are leasing, sorry, when the questions pop up, it kind of like distracts me a little bit. When they're leasing the truck, they need to have usage of that at their discretion, meaning they're not going to hold up their DBE work because somebody else needs to utilize the truck. Leased trucks must display the name and identification of a number of the DBE. And, you know, I'm not talking about it has to be like spray painted or advertised that way. It could be simple, like a little magnetic thing that slips on, or a piece of paper that says this is ABC Trucking Company, and you understand that that truck and that driver is specific for the DBE work. Owner-operator requirements also apply, and the lease must indicate the lessor's names, list of trucks to be leased, the VIN number, agreed upon amount, and of the cost and method of payment. Any questions with regards to lease agreements? All right, we'll go to the next slide, please. Okay.
All right, so here's your next knowledge check. And the question is, should you notify the prime contractor prior to performing a DBE trucking review? Yes or no?
Yes.
So the majority of folks, both in the poll and in the chat, are agreeing that the answer is no. So we go to the next slide, Tiffany. And that is indeed the answer. The answer is no, that the review should be performed at random.
All right, so just to reiterate, it is randomly done. You as the inspector or the person that will perform the cuff just need to know when the DBE will be on the project. You don't have to announce when you're going to be there. And you have to do this verification without knowledge of anyone doing it. It's basically like a surprise audit, essentially. All right, next slide, please, Hannah. Okay, so now we're going to discuss paid summary reports. Is there any questions up to this point about anything that we've covered so far? All right, so paid summary reports are PSRs. It's a DBE regulations require monitoring to ensure prompt payment to all subcontractors. ODOT is required to report disadvantaged business entities, minority women, emerging small businesses, as well as veteran business entities. And these are for utilization and payments to FHWA, the governor's office, as well as the legislature. Next slide, please. So what are the requirements of the PSRs? They're for all projects with and without DBE goals. They're required from subcontractors and primes at every tier. Certifying payments have been made to each of the following: all subcontractors, committed DBE suppliers, non-committed DBE suppliers and service providers with estimated total payments for the project over $10,000. And committed DBE trucking firms are to submit paid summary reports showing payments to leased trucks. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a blank PSR. If you will notice at the very top right corner, you'll see construction instructions. When you click on that button, it'll give you line by line as far as how to fill out each of the boxes. So some of the things that we run into commonly as far as what is not being reported accurately in in box number 2, which is progress estimate, date paid, that is actually the date that your agency received payment from ODOT. And then box number 7 is the date that you're reporting the work that was done. So when you're looking at box 18, which is date paid, in order to ensure that prompt payment is being made, box 18 should reflect 10 days or less from the date box 2 has, because prompt payment is required as part of your contract 10 days from the time the agency makes payment to the local, ODOT makes payment to the local agency, and then the prime has to make that payment to its subcontractors. Does that make sense? Yes, go ahead, Tiffany.
Yeah, I want to clarify, this progress estimate is the date that the contracting agency, so the certified agency, when they make payment to their prime contractor, and then the contractor makes payment to their subs. So this isn't the date ODOT pays the local agency. This is the date the prime contractor makes the contracting agency, so the certified agency makes their payment to the prime. That's what that progress estimate should represent.
Okay, thank you. So we just had an audit in November, December, January with regards to prompt payment from FHWA. So this is something that they're looking under a microscope as far as ensuring that compliance is made for prompt payment. And I'm not sure about how some of the other field coordinators do their reviews, but in my review for all of my agencies, I will now note whether prompt payment was delinquent or not, just so that it gives the CAS or whoever handles the PSRs and submits them to OECR to be mindful of keeping note of that, so that if it continues through the life cycle of the project, they can have that conversation with the prime to ensure that prompt payment is made according to the contract. Yes, Anna.
Yes, I have I know that one time I was talking to my prime contractors on the federal aid projects, and they said that the reason why they didn't pay the sub promptly was because there was some issue with document that were not supplied, so but they have to turn in the the PSR. So in that case, I mean, that's okay, like it's legal, correct? I mean, the prime contractor does have some nudge to hold payment until the sub turn in all the required document on its end, correct? So in that case, can we explain that to the FHW and
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome to do that when you submit your PSR in your email. You're welcome to put that, and we will notate that because no proof of work, no payment. That's not that's not unreasonable.
Okay, thanks. I'll make sure I pass it on to my prime contractor. If they don't have the prompt payment, they need to explain in the email that they send it to to our office, and then we can pass it on. All right, thank you.
Yes, no problem. And when you have one-off things like that, but if you're talking about the subcontractors have done all their work, they've turned on their paperwork, and the prime is still not paying them on time, that's an issue. So that's something that you have to be cognizant about and ensure that you manage that properly.
Absolutely, thank you.
Who is raising? What's the other question? Is there another question?
Looks like Kate has her hand up.
Yeah,
Go
we've
ahead.
had I put it in the chat. We've, on the recent projects, we've had more than one prime telling us they're paying their subs before we, the agency, pay them because they can't be competitive with some of their subs if they wait that long. And I just wanted to mention that, so that the dates, some of the dates are showing as, before 10 days of the payment in question. And it's just a problem we're facing with the form.
So if they pay early, I'm good on them, right? But that's not what we're monitoring for compliance. The only thing we're monitoring for FHWA is that it's paid within the 10-day frame. Any other questions? All right. If you need the form, it is available at our civil rights reporting page. All of our forms for civil rights are there. So if you need the most updated form, please be sure to get it off the site. All right, let's go to the the next slide. Thank you so much. So I would like to, I wanted to keep the slide here just to show an example of, if you're looking at box number 2, it was paid 7/26/2020. And then if you're looking at box 18, the subs were not paid until December. So that's almost a 5-month delinquency. And that is what will be red flagged by FHWA. Looking at everything else, ensure that when you're doing any of the dates, use the drop-down arrows instead of punching in the date in the box. Excuse me, let me just take a drink, sorry. All right. So when you're listing your subcontractors in box 10, column 10, you don't necessarily have to put them in order, but you want to ensure that all of your sub IDs correspond correctly. Your committed DBEs, the columns from paid to amount paid to date, those will automatically add for you in the form, but you have to do the actual calculations when they're non-committed DBE subs on the form. So just ensure that you're accurate with your numbers, because that can throw our reporting off otherwise. And if you'll notice on the form here, column 20 for the first 2, Cartello and certified, when you see those brackets on outside of the numbers, that means that they've paid over the contract amount, that amount of dollars. And I know that can be confusing because normally in accounting, when you have those parentheses, that means that it's a shortage, was really not. On this form, it is considered an overage over the contract amount. And then looking at the bottom, we want to ensure that you don't put any extra punctuations. When you're putting your phone number, you don't have to put any punctuation, just type the number in. It'll automatically fill in the field for you with the dashes. Always use any drop-down buttons that is on the form, because that's the intention of it, is for you to only select what's there rather than inputting your own information. Any questions as far as filling out the PSR properly? And just remember, if you get stuck, use the construction instructions. Like, it spells everything out for you. All right. Sean, what's your question?
I was typing in, trying to make sure I got it in time. Basically, I have a contractor that likes to put both of the month's progress payment estimate numbers and dates. They can never select just one for the PSR. How do I get them to stop?
That's a great question. A lot of times we'll get stuff in and I'm just like, I don't know what date to choose. So sometimes you have to just make your best guess. I will tell you that what I prefer to see is sequential project estimate numbers. So sometimes I'll get 1 and then I'll get 6, or I'll get 1 and revised 1, 2, 3. But you just kind of want to make sure that whatever is being reported is consistent. A revision is a revision of what they've already submitted, not a new month. Is that clear? Sorry.
Sure, yeah.
You want to make sure there's one estimate number, one date.
I mean, that makes sense, but
yeah,
it's just that I think they get confused because PBOT pays twice a month, and so they have 2 payments for that month of the PSR, and they can't just say that this is a new PSR, number 6, and then they have 7 and 8 for the next one. Yeah.
Sean, what you're welcome to do is you can always contact myself, or anyone in Region 2 can contact Alyssa. We'll be happy to do like a mini training with the prime or the subs that are having issues. And that way everybody's on the same page.
Okay, yeah, because it is kind of a newer prime for federal aid projects.
And that happens often. Even, there's even primes that have been around for a long time that just, they have their own way of doing it and that's how they want to do it. So, old habits kind of die hard sometimes.
Thank you.
And then whenever there's, evolution and change, sometimes people are not on board with that. So sometimes they need a nudge or just some re-education and some enlightenment as far as what the new part of the process is.
Assimilation, yeah.
Okay. And Kate, did you have another question?
No. Is my hand still up? I apologize.
Oh, it was up. Sorry. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next slide. All right. So what's the timing for PSRs, right? Every estimate progress payment in which payments are made to subcontractors within 20 days of receipt of the payment from the agency or controlling contractor. So I do understand that sometimes subs have to be paid prior because, they need the money to buy their supplies to pay their people. I get that. But we're just talking about the reporting aspect of the payment. So just ensure that prompt payment is made 10 days after the agency pays the sub, the prime should pay their subs within the 10 days. The submittal process, right? Contractors to submit to the email provided by the certified agency to the contractor at the pre-construction conference. This is when they tell you how and when to submit it, right? Subcontractors must submit to the controlling contractor. So if they're second or third tier, they would push it up to whoever their contract is with, and then prime submits to the agency. The certified agency then submits it to OECR via the field coordinator. You want to make sure that the email chain is kept intact. It's just part of the regulations that are in the LAG manual. This way, the local agency liaison can be as informed as the field coordinator and the local agency office. So if there is an issue along the chain, that one of us will catch it and then make those course corrections as needed. Next slide, please. All right, so prompt payment. And I know this is sounding like a broken record, but it is an issue that has been brought up to our OECR office as far as noncompliance. And this is across the board, not just for local agencies. Subs must be paid within 10 days of receipt of payment to the prime by the certified LPA. All forms and other documents must be complete, and it applies to all subcontractors, DBEs and non-DBEs. Any questions as far as what this means? All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the MUIR, the Monthly Employment Utilization Report. So per contract, you must submit MUIRs monthly for all contractors and subcontractors that require CPRs or certified payrolls. They're due each month from the first to the last month of work, even if work was not performed. So there is a box on the form that you can check for no work performed. Data is reported to FHWA, legislatures, ad hoc requests, etc. Next slide, please. So this is a form example. Again, there are instructions that can tell you exactly how to fill out the form. Ensure that you're using the contractor's legal name and their corresponding sub-ID for that project. In box number 3, we get this a lot because I understand that local agencies have their own contract numbers, the subs and primes have their own contract numbers. What needs to go there is the ODOT contract number, not the key number. It's the ODOT contract number. The MUIR also has a new version, and we have it listed here in the slide. But if you don't have this version that says 1223, please go to our OECR reporting site on SharePoint, and you can download this. The difference is it now has the veterans as part of the drop down. So that was something new that came up in legislature as of last year. So we have updated our form to reflect that change. Yes, go ahead, Tiffany.
Trisha, can we go back to the comment on box 3, the ODOT contract number? I think that because our certified agencies don't have an ODOT contract number, that would be the certified agency's contract number that they give and report to Office of Civil Rights on their notice of award, right?
Correct. Sometimes I will get some different number there. So I just want to make sure that, and the contract number is in the subcontracts, it's discussed at the internal pre-con. I mean, so it's not like the local agencies don't have that number. I think sometimes in the shuffle of getting things submitted in a timely manner, that sometimes can get overlooked, but it doesn't correspond in our system for me to be able to process the MUIR and accept it and record it in our system without the proper number. So that's why it's important that it's the number that we have in our system. And a lot of times we have a key number as well as an ODOT contract number. So we want to ensure it's the other number. So just as an example, like PBOT starts with 3,000, it's 3, 1, and 3 zeros and then a number, and that's the number that should go there, not the key number.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying.
Yes, no problem. Okay. All right. So looking at the report month date, anytime there's a date, there's normally a drop box arrow that you can select, and then you pick the date off the calendar. What will happen is if you try to enter information or data in these boxes that require the drop down, it'll kick it out of our system and not save. So we want to ensure that you're following all the instructions as listed there with the arrow. You see it at the very top right corner, and you're following what needs to be put as far as data in each box and utilizing the drop downs when there is one. Again, no extra punctuation, no dots. If you're putting the telephone number, just put the number there and it'll reset as far as with the dashes in between. Kate, did you have a question?
Yes, for boxes 3 and 4, we've been having troubles chronically, particularly with less sophisticated subs or, like sign makers. They tend to send things in with the wrong numbers, and it comes to us in the thread from the prime. Can we, and I know ODOT wants that thread to be Christine, but can we make minor changes, maybe just to the subject line of the email so we can submit them? Like I've just had to reject 2 from a sign company because they got the numbers wrong, but I have a prime that's not terribly responsive. So I've gone back to the prime to ask them to get the sub to change them. And a week later asked the prime if I could contact the sub to change it, and I don't get a reply. So we have a lot of these mirrors that are correct except for those 2 boxes. Is it possible we could just fix the subject lines for your filing?
You know, honestly, I think as long as when you're sending the email, if you find that that's an issue, you're welcome to put in your email, you know, box 3 should be this and box whatever should be this, but I don't see a problem with adding the contract number in the subject line because that's super helpful for the field coordinators to be able to process the documentation.
Okay, thank you. I'll try.
We just want to
I'll
make sure
submit
that
them.
it gets credit for the right project, right? That's the goal, is to ensure that the correct credit goes to the correct project, the corresponding project.
Thank you.
Because I do understand that subcontractors and primes are on multiple projects throughout the Metroplex. So it's not unusual for, say, a local agency to have prime A on 5 different projects, and then maybe prime A sent them a mirror for a different project that's not the one that they're reporting on. So I don't see an issue with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so you can see in box 14, if you have a no work performed, you just check that box. Even if everything else is filled out, as long as that box is checked. And I've had both where there's hours and the box check, so I've had to send those back and just inquire which is it, right? Is it hours or no hours? You just want to make sure that the reporting is accurate. And this is also important to ensure that the social security 4 digits are there. We can't accept it without that. We can't accept it without the first and last name. The one thing that we will not necessarily require, but we do strongly encourage, is to get the ethnicity, because it does help with the like utilization report as far as who is on the project and the diversification of the tradesmen that are actually working on the project. So again, not required, but highly encouraged to get the ethnicity. Of course, the construction trade is required, as well as the trade classification, the hours, and the base rate if you are reporting hours. When you're doing your box 29 and 30, sometimes I'll have in box 30, what's the title, and they put their name. That's not your title. Your title, we want to know what your job is with the company. So if you're a compliance officer, put compliance officer. If you're just an admin, put admin. That's all we want to know. You don't have to put your name twice. And then again, with the date, ensure that you're using the drop-down box for the date. And then you'll see for box 21, 22, 23, 24, you'll see the drop box down for those. So you can select the gender, the construction trade, the classification. And you'll see in bold red at the bottom, the contractor's name should be their legal name. And if you have a revision, ensure that you're using the drop box in box number 6. A lot of times that means like maybe you forgot to add a payment and you already submitted the PSR. That's what the revision is for. If it's actually for a new PSR, just put a new estimated date and a new date. So I know, Sean, you talked about the double payment in a month. You can submit 2 PSRs if you want to. It's more work, but if that's the best way for you to keep your records, you can absolutely do that. Any questions so far? All right, let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, so oh, Sean, I'm sorry, you raised your hand again. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that Amy has a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Hey, so I posted a question in the chat. Basically, we're having an issue on our PSRs. Our agency holds retainage, and so some of our contractors choose not to pay their subcontractors if there's quantity being held in retainage. And what's happening is we're having DBE shortfalls, quote unquote, because that retainage is being held up. I've had it happen on a couple of my projects, and it's really a problem when we get to the end because it appears that we have a DBE shortfall, but we really don't. So I'm trying to figure out how we can properly communicate that to ODOT, because one of our requirements for retainage release is close out of the project, and to get close out of a project, we have to have ODOT OCR sign off. But we're not getting that sign off because it looks like we have a DBE shortfall.
Right. It's kind of like a catch-22 for your specific agency, right? Because we've had this discussion before on a couple of projects. I think honestly, if we can see visually that the retainage held will fulfill the DBE contract, I think that's okay. I think the problem we have is when we see a huge shortfall and that doesn't match the retainage amount. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does,
Okay.
but we've tried to communicate that in the past and it didn't get
And
accepted, so.
we could ask Dipankar if he can give more clarification on this. Normally, when that happens, we will involve Dipankar so that he can give us direction as far as what needs to happen. And I'm not sure if he's ready to speak on it. We can always talk offline about this, Amy, and come to some kind of resolution because I understand your process and then we have our own process. So we need to find a happy medium so that we can close out the projects accordingly. Dipankar, did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question, but I think it is better that we respond later.
Okay. Yes, let's do that,
Because
Amy.
we don't want to respond something and there will be more questions on that.
Right? Okay. Any other questions? I see a hand raised.
Yeah. Can you verify that if the construction trade is not in the drop-down menu, they don't need to submit a mirror?
Can you give an example of a construction trade that you've seen that's not in the drop down?
Like an archaeologist.
Huh.
Because it's under my understanding that it's not a BOLI, like.
Yeah, apprenticeable trade. Yeah, so if it's not in the drop down, then they wouldn't receive credit for the OJT goal.
So an archaeologist is technically a service provider.
There you go.
So it's not a construction trade per se. Okay. I just saw a question, sorry.
I was just Trisha wanted to weigh in on the retainage piece and just identify that might be a conversation too, that you might want to pull in certification because we actually do a review of their construction contracting templates and this would impact their reduction of retainage specification. So that is something that, it's a permissive part of the Oregon public contracting statute, the reduction of retainage, and our specs indicate that we would be reducing retainage at a certain point, or that there's an opportunity for the subs to request that the primes begin a request to the contracting agency for a reduction in retainage so that that gets paid out. Because if you're a sub that did work early in the project and you've completed your work, but the prime keeps holding the retainage and the agency keeps holding the retainage, you've got an issue, that is kind of triggering a prompt payment issue. And so it is something that we should probably look at and maybe escalate and make sure that the contract language for the federal aid projects is appropriate to not trigger these, trigger a prompt payment issue, and then also have this compounding effect where it's hard to resolve the DBE commitment issue. Amy?
Yeah. So I think the reason that it's really come up lately, because it used to not be as much of an issue because we could do partial retainage releases, being that the city held retention in our own accounts, but because the Oregon statutes changed to where they have the choice to place their retainage in an escrow retainage account, that makes it nearly impossible for us to do. We don't do partial retainage releases. And so I think that's where the issue is coming up. And so that's where, from our point of view, where the issue really lies. We encourage our contractors now to just do a performance bond instead of doing a retainage. But we can only request. We can't tell them how they have to do something.
Right. So good news on that, Amy. That law changed this legislative session. It had an emergency clause associated with it, and it went into effect immediately upon signature by the governor. And we are working on getting a publication out to our certified agencies that shows the updates to the Section 195.50 on the retainage. However, the fix on this, so those escrow accounts as a requirement for contracts over 500,000, that has been eliminated from the statute. But now contracting agencies are required to accept a surety bond in lieu of retainage if a contractor or a subcontractor requests that the agency accept a surety bond in lieu of all or a portion of retainage. And so that is going to drive some change, some administrative change that might have to happen even by change order. At least that's the way I'm kind of understanding things. So more to come on that, but hopefully that will alleviate some of the problems that your agency has had around this issue moving forward.
Hopefully, that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, and just wanted to circle back to the question about the archaeologist. According to the Bully's occupational definitions, it is a service provider and therefore not required to be reported on the MURS. And that came from Christy Meacham is on the call, as well as Alyssa. So I love the teamwork that we're all having to provide you with the most accurate and best answers to your questions today. We appreciate your participation. Any questions as far as the MUR and how you need to fill it out completely before submitting? All right, let's go to the next slide, please.
Trisha, it looks like Kate has her hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Kate. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry if I have too many questions.
No,
or
there's
a lot
not
of
too many questions.
I don't know if trucker is in, I hadn't really thought that hard about that drop-down menu till somebody just asked about it with the archaeologist, but are truckers in there? And I guess a related question is, the report's called the Monthly Employment and Apprenticeship Report or something in the lag manual, and you can't be an apprentice trucker. So are these required for truckers? And if so, what's the reasoning? Or any non-apprenticeable trade, I guess, like sign makers too. I don't think you can have an apprentice sign. Well, maybe they're coming as laborers. Never mind. What about truckers?
So the truckers are considered an occupational trade, and so therefore they are on the mirrors. The reason the truckers need to have a mirror is because they're reported on the CPR. So if you submit a CPR, you submit a mirror.
Thanks.
Yes, no problem. Any other questions? Sorry if I'm overlooking people. I'm trying to look at 4 different screens, so. All right. Knowledge check. Thank you, Hannah.
All right. I think this is the day. So the last question is, are our mirrors due if no work was performed that month? Yes or no? I'm gonna go to the next slide, Tiffany. So the answer, which the vast majority of you got, is yes, mirrors are due from each subcontractor every month, even if no work was performed. And as Sean notes, check that box.
Well, I guess that would be prime contractor as well, right? So we should probably fix our slide.
And I'd also like to add on to the answer that I gave to Kate earlier about the truck driver and the mirror. So the truck driver has to submit basically, or the company has to submit for the truck driver, as long as the truck driver is on site more than 15 minutes. If they're not on site more than 15 minutes, of course, that's not reported. But sometimes there are loads that are left at the site that require them to sit a little longer to get the asphalt out or the cement or whatever they're bringing to the site. So just keep that in mind, okay? And those mirrors are done until the truck drivers are on site for the very last day worked. As long as it's 15 minutes or more, then they have to report their time. So
I'm not sure if could you repeat that? You're saying for the mirror, you report if it's greater than 50?
Correct. So you would submit your CPR for your truck drivers if their time is greater than the 15 minutes they're allotted to be on the site. So if they're waiting off site, of course, they're not going to turn in their CPR time for that.
So no Muir time either? Am I hearing that correctly?
As long as the CPR is submitted, if they have a CPR submitted, then a mirror is required. So if you need more clarification than that, there is information in the BOLI handbook about the truck drivers and the requirements for reporting their time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trisha, we have a good question here about clarification in the chat box from Fabian.
So who does
can
the
you
trucking log?
clarify who is the one that completes the DBE trucking log?
So depending on the structure of your local agency, some agencies have an inspector, some do not. Some have a project manager that does all the work. So it just depends on who is designated in your office to do that.
So Trisha, the intent of the trucking log is to actually have the trucking firm complete their trucking log and submit it, and then it would be the person at the agency that reviews and confirms the information and does the independent verification. So that DBE trucking report should come from the DBE trucking subcontractor.
The trucking company or the prime, yeah. Let me see what I know the question was long. The DB trucking subcontractors are required to maintain of all trucks, either license plate number or truck owner, to say, hard to submit the PM daily, 14 days. But it was not mentioned that the inspector agency is the one that completes the form. Yeah. Did that answer your question? I'm so sorry, Fabian.
Yeah, I had read the document in the ODOT website, that the DBE program plan, and had read that it was the DBE or subcontractor that submitted, but was confused when it was mentioned here at this training that it was the agency that completed the trucking log. So I wanted to get clarification on that.
Yeah, and I'll see.
Yeah, it's the agency that does the 10% verification, and they're going to use that trucking log as one of the resources because they're going to verify consistency with the DBE's submission.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So before we move on to the next section, we had a tentative break scheduled for 10 minutes, but we're not going to have time for the break. So we're going to carry on from here. Are you okay with me advancing the slide, Tricia, or did you want to take more questions?
No.
Okay.
Unless there's more questions.
I think we should probably move into the next portion of it. And then if people still have questions, they can always ask questions so that we, because we've got 12 minutes left in our time. Perfect. So I'm thinking we should probably move forward.
I'll speak fast.
No, you just carry on. You're doing a great job. I think it's really people have an opportunity to ask questions, and it takes a minute sometimes for the mind to catch up with everything that it's absorbing. So I think this is good.
All right, next slide, please. All right, so now we're going to discuss on-the-job training, or the apprenticeship program. And it is really, really important to support apprenticeship, simply because there's an exodus of mass amounts of tradesmen that are either retiring or leaving the construction industry, and there's not enough backfill of experienced tradesmen to fill all the positions that are vacating. This can affect project timelines, costs of projects. So we want to ensure that we support apprenticeship programs and really make it very easy for people to get into the trades, stay in the trades, and then build a career, because the money's good, the opportunities are there. And without people to build our infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, whatnot, that will impact our society as a whole. So this is a very important component of the construction life cycle. Without experienced tradesmen, we do not have quality infrastructure being built in our state. We're going to talk about the documents that are required for the OJT and apprenticeship programs. There are 3 documents. There's the TPAR, or the Training Program Approval Request. There is the ATAR, the Apprenticeship Trainee Approval Request, and there is also the MPR, which is the Apprentice Trainee Monthly Progress Report. All of these forms can be found on our website on SharePoint for civil rights reporting. Next slide, please. All right, so what is the purpose of the TPAR? The TPAR is what the sub or the prime will submit, letting us know what apprenticeship is going to be performed on the project, as well as the amount of time that is allotted for that apprenticeship. For example, if there is a cement mason, $1,000 hours of apprenticeship, they will fill this in as far as craft cement mason in section 8, box 8, and then their BOLI ID, as well as the type, as well as the hours assigned to the craft. Make sure that 12 is filled out with the date that that the trainee starts, or I'm sorry, I have to say it correctly. The apprentice starts. And this can be revised, but usually when the TPAR is submitted, it's directly taken out of the subcontract, right? So if there is 500 hours for labor, 500 for cement, they'll submit two TPARs, or they will let us know how it's going to be broken down. Then going down to the certification and submitted section, you would have the person submitting the request, which is usually a representative for the entity that is utilizing the apprenticeship program. Then the project manager will concur as far as approving, and this is based on the subcontract, of course. And then this will come to the field coordinator to approve and file in our records. So on 13, you can see that drop down menu there, add another line. So if you have 4 apprenticeable trades, you can submit 4 on there. Just make sure that all of the information is filled out and the hours that they're wanting to utilize for that apprenticeship program matches the subcontract. Any questions? So there's a sequence in order in which these documents have to be submitted. The TPAR, of course, is the first thing that should come through. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, so the ATAR basically tells us who is going to be performing that apprenticeship. So in, let's see, box number 8, you'll list the last name of the apprentice, the first name and 9, and then the last 4 digits of the social required, as well as the BOLI registration number. And does everybody here know how to verify an apprentice that is active? Just question.
Yes.
Okay. So because I have to deal with OJT documents quite often, I already have it saved on my desktop, but you can find a registered apprentice at the BOLI website. And I will put that in the chat before everybody leaves today. And basically you will verify that their status is active. And if they're not active, you will go back to your prime or your subcontractor that's submitting this to ensure that they have the documentation, because sometimes BOLI can be backlogged and they may not be completely up to date. And I think Christy put it in the chat if anybody's interested in that website. And this should be done prior to submittal. As checks and balances, Alyssa and I will definitely ensure that the apprentice is active at the time of work being reported on the project. So I recently had a project where a prime submitted an ATAR for a apprentice whose registration had expired in December, and they submitted it in February. So in that case, OECR did not accept it because that was not an active apprentice. And I verified that by contacting BOLI to ensure that their records were up to date. So that is your due diligence before this comes to us, to ensure that they are registered and active to participate in the apprenticeship program. Is that clear? Yes, who's got a question?
No, it's not clear. So it says, so I think I'm getting confused about in-house. So if they're in-house, like say they hire someone to, say your general contractor hires, your prime hires someone to come in and be, I don't know, an apprentice in their concrete crew. So do they also have to be registered as an apprentice someplace else, or can they just hire them? Our prime on one of our projects right now is saying they can't get anyone. They've sent out letters to the different various trades, and they say no one's available. And so now we're considering about them hiring someone and doing an in-house training program, but I guess we're confused. We don't understand it.
So
I don't, and I don't understand it, and the prime doesn't understand it.
So I will be completely transparent. The in-house training is not something that we see readily. I'm going to ask Christy if she's available to weigh in on this question, and if she's not, we can get back to you, offline and
I sent you
talk
an
about
email.
it.
I actually sent you an email, so you can just reply to it too. So.
Oh, okay. Well, there's
Okay.
Christy if she can answer it for you quickly.
So the in-house training program is only 5 of them. They're on the OCR website and they have to be approved. It's employee specific. It's very labor intensive. And if they're looking for apprentices that they to fulfill an apprentice program, they need to contact all the trades, not just the ones they prefer to work for or take the disincentive. It's kind of up to them. So the in-house training program is not something you can do on your own. You have to use one that's approved by FHWA. It's not made to fit a contract. It's made for employer to improve the workforce in Oregon. So it's not something that you can just, we're just going to hire them and call them a trainee laborer. You can't do that. You won't get, well, you could, but you won't get credit for those hours. So if you want creditable hours, they have to go through an apprenticeship program through Washington or Oregon, and or get approved for the in-house training program, which is a conversation that can be had offline because it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and they have to have, anyway, it's a lot of time.
Okay.
So if that's something you want to pursue, contact your field coordinator and we'll work with them.
Well, unfortunately, I think it's encouraging people to just take the incentive just to pay the fine, because if they can't find workers to do it and they have done good faith.
There's no good faith for apprenticeship
I know
programs.
there's no good faith, but there is good faith if they actually do it and they can't get apprentices. So it's kind of a catch-22. And so it's sort of forcing these primes just into paying the $13,000 and checking the box. And so everyone loses. It's unfortunate.
That's a disservice.
Thank you, Christy and Nicole. We have a few slides left and we have 1 minute. So sorry to cut you short.
Okay.
We're just going to have to follow up offline on that.
All right, next slide. All right, so the NPR, this essentially is like the timesheet for the apprentice for the month, and it gives you the opportunity, or whoever fills this out, to check off what they actually did within their trade on what day and how many hours they participated in doing that specific work. It's to ensure that they work within the class of their trade and not outside of their trade, because apprenticeship will not be reimbursed for work that is outside of their specific apprenticeship trade. We can go to the next one. All right, so again, the purpose of the OJT program and apprenticeship program is to provide career opportunities, develop skilled workforce, which is important because we want skilled people doing our roads and our sidewalks and our bridges. It increased workforce diversity, and it supports the construction industry and development needs. Next slide, please. If you do have an apprentice, and a lot of times apprentices are being paid below the actual trade wage, there is a CANA that will help provide them with boots or tools or whatnot that they need. If they need childcare, if they need help getting to a work site that's very far from where they live, they can work with the apprentices and assist them through this social program. And the contact information is there. It's Penny Painter at Akana. There's a telephone number as well as a website. I did confirm that they did get the contract and still provide these services for apprenticeship. So that is still ongoing and current. Next slide, please. And these are the resources if you need them. If I'm not mistaken, Tiffany, are they going to receive the PowerPoint if they want it? Okay, so you have all of the information you need at your fingertips. This is our contact information. Also on the call today was Christy Meacham. She is our trainer, and so she is super knowledgeable, very deep knowledge of our programs, and can assist you if we are not available. And thank you all so much for your participation and attention today. I hope this has helped make your process going forward much easier and more seamless. And we are always here to help you if you need assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank you, Dipankar and Christy and Amanda for your training today. Hannah's going to close us out with the final thank you slide and tell you about an email everybody's going to be getting.
Yep. So just now that we've wrapped everything up, we do have a fairly short post knowledge check for you to complete. I dropped the link to the city county one in the chat. I'm going to do the MPO version momentarily, and you will also be receiving this in an email too. And we just ask that you can complete, if you could complete this within a week of the training, that would be great.
That's it. Thank you for the 3 additional minutes and hope you all have a great afternoon. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Looks like that's a wrap. Gonna close her out.